James Lynch here from MiddleEasy. Happy to be joined by now former UFC women's featherweight Felicia Spencer here on the program. Felicia, how are you today? And thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's great to talk to you. Obviously, dropping a bombshell on all of us yesterday, announcing that you were stepping away from MMA. Before we get into sort of your decision and all that, what's been the feedback like the last 24 hours? Because I think it caught a lot of people off guard.
Yeah, I kind of was expecting a lot of like negativity, like that I was like just stupid for making the decision at the time that I made it. But I actually was surprised with all the positivity that I got from it. I mean, no matter what reaction I got, like the decision was made. I told my coaches and I told the UFC, and then I was like, well, I'm not going to tell everyone one by one, so let's just say it.
Yeah, let's get it out there. So let's start
Yeah.
all the way at the beginning here. I was surprised. I'll just, we've done interviews for a while. This was something unexpected for me. But when did you even have sort of the thought of maybe, hanging them up? Because I know also I've heard some rumblings about that. You said, I guess when you got into your 30s, you're sort of thinking anyways, that's when you'd stop fighting. But when for you was retirement on your mind?
I mean, honestly, from the beginning, it's funny that it kind of worked out the way it did. That when I started to compete, when I started to really like compete or train to compete in MMA, I was 18. Started at the jungle, and they're like, you should compete. So I started to train like I was going to fight from then on. So it's been 12 years. I was always thinking, probably around 30 will be it, and back then I had no idea that, I would be where I'm at. And then honestly, like after kind of leading up to my fight with Norma in May, that year prior to that, it had a lot of stuff in my life that just made me want to like focus on just health. I lost my brother, so like that kind of stuff. Just thinking about family and just how meaningful they are to me, like, and how much I don't want them to see me suffer in the future with, we watched my grandmother suffer with dementia and, just other mental health issues that are significant, like that. I don't suffer from anything right now, but once it starts happening, it's too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always just felt like a little bit of guilt that my family, that my husband, that, that everyone that loves me might see me in that way in the future. So I always kind of thought that around 30, I would, be done with competing, and no matter where I'm at, how great things are going, that there's a time to call it. And so leading up to Norma, I was kind of going through some of that guilt. And after the Norma fight, I kind of thought, I took a loss. I was definitely feeling like maybe I just won't come back. And then like a month or two after the fight, I was like, oh, I just can't, I can't leave it like that. I wasn't proud of my performance. I knew I could be better and show better. And so I wanted one more chance, win or lose, to just like really be proud of my performance. And that honestly drove me through the camp to be as motivated as ever. And like, I feel like on that night, I could have beat anybody, So in a way, it's like, oh, why would you stop now? But that's what I wanted. I really wanted to have that, to feel good about what I did, and then walk away.
Makes total sense. And I don't think people know you had a knee injury going into that Norma Dumont fight. I know you're not one to make excuses. I'm the one bringing it up. When did that happen? When did you suffer the injury?
It was during the first round of the fight. I tore my PCL.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it was during the fight, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Crazy.
like I said, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you sort of mentioned it there that this was sort of always your plan in your 30s that you would no longer continue fighting. Was it tough keeping that to yourself? Because I don't ever remember you mentioning that. At least maybe I forgot to ask the question, but
Yeah.
I don't remember, like, because obviously when you say that, then people are like, oh, is she focused on fighting or not? Was that difficult to not
Yeah.
bring that up?
It was, yeah, like I always kind of, not, I don't want to say I felt guilty, but I knew that putting that out there would put me in, like, it would just have people would have seen me in a different way, or I would maybe, and I didn't really like set it in stone until it was done,
Mhm.
but even in like the last fight after I was done, people asking about my future, and like I didn't want to like come out at that point because I hadn't even told my coaches, even though when I ended up telling one of them, he was like, I kind of saw it coming. I knew, that you were going to tell me this. Um, yeah, I didn't want it to be like, I felt guilty about kind of talking about my future in the sport with kind of knowing that it might be not happening, but it's all kind of part of the game. I wanted to, leave the door open in
Yeah.
case a week from there I was like, nah, I'm not done, but I think as much as like at this point in my career, like I'm making good money, I'm happy with my pay, I'm happy with where I'm at. The division's starting to roll. So I definitely had a little bit of that like guilt, but I don't want to just fight for money, like it's not what I wanted from the beginning. I wanted to aim to be the best, and I did everything the way I wanted. I tried. Not that I don't feel like I failed. I feel like I still could continue to go on that path and be the best. And but I feel like I owe it to myself and more so to my family. My just for my future family and situation to just know when to call it. And yeah, it's funny that it kind of worked out. I was 30 up until last week, so I was 30 during my last fight. Yeah, now I'm 31. Now I'm done.
Okay. Well, no,
So
that makes sense. Well, I'm glad you clarified the fighter pay thing because I know when you released the statement, you mentioned how fighting's sort of an opportunity. It's not necessarily a career. So it seems like pay was not an issue for you retiring, or was it? I want you to just sort of clarify that.
yeah, to clarify, not at all. Like
Yeah.
people were saying it was a jab at Dana. No, I completely agree with Dana. Fighting
Yeah.
is an opportunity. I've always seen it that way. They call it a career just because it's like, what else do you call it? But yeah, it is an opportunity in my eyes. And it's kind of funny because when I fought Nunes, it was the second fight back from COVID. And my husband was in the octagon post fight, and he's like, Dana, you know, thank you for, giving us the opportunity to still fight. Like it's funny because I don't know who said it first, but my husband's like, it's not a career, it's an opportunity. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to fight during all this. Like, again, it was June of 2020, giving us an opportunity to make money during this time, to fight and keep going. Um, so yeah, kind of just, we've always thought of it as more of an opportunity, and you make of it what you can.
So I got to ask, this is retirement sticking, right? Because we hear about MMA retirements. Someone's on the sidelines for a few months and then they end up coming back, or a few years in the case of like Uriah Faber. No possibility of seeing you pop up in PFL or Bellator.
No, I still am under contract with the UFC, so it's not about that either. I
Yeah,
have one more
exactly.
fight on my contract, and I really like. I know everyone uses the word retirement, but like I can't use that word. I don't see this as retirement. Like I feel like MMA fighters who retire are people who who have the career, and then you don't. You not again with the pay, like you don't have to work anymore. Like GSP retired,
Mhm.
Amanda Nunes could retire, Connor could retire. For me, I'm still gonna go live my life and have more work. I stopped teaching a year ago. Does that mean I retired from teaching?
Yeah.
I just don't see it that way. Like I feel like it's just the next step of my life, of my work, of my what I'm gonna do. So,
Yeah.
and I don't really know exactly what the next step is gonna be. Like I have a few things going on. Like I still want to be involved in the sport. I'm still going to talk, do my segments and stuff with Dave. And, I've had actually a couple of people ask about commentating, which I'm super interested and
Awesome.
exciting about. And then my husband and I, we have a business that we started last year. So kind of diving, doing better, doing better work with that. And who knows what else I'll get into, kind of leaving the door open right now and not like pinning down any, full-time gig right now.
For sure. And that's great. There's a lot of opportunities at hand there. And yeah, I guess when I said retirement, I meant you're no longer competing in the UFC. I know as a martial artist, you're always living that lifestyle, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of where you're getting at. Okay.
To answer your question, like I have no intention of coming back. And again, I'm not leaving because of because I'm on a losing streak or because
Well, you
I
want to
just
fight. That's so rare in MMA to retire off
yeah.
of or step away from the sport as on a win. Usually it's the opposite.
Yeah. So it's that I can feel good about, and again, like my reasoning for stopping is not for myself, it's for others. I mean, it's for my own well-being for the future, but like I'm not going to be the one that has to see me go through deterioration. And if it happened, I'm not saying it would happen, but the chance that it could happen, I know how painful it is for for everyone that's around you to see that happen. And I feel like I can prevent a possibility of that by stopping now. So
Yeah.
hopefully I don't decide. Who knows, like anything can happen, I guess, but I hope that I don't for the sake of my future. But
Okay. couple things you mentioned there. You mentioned the business with your husband. What is it that you do? I don't know if you're allowed to say. I know some people are private about that stuff, but what is your business for people who might not know?
Yeah, well, my husband's an amazing roofer, so we have a very small roofing company in
Oh,
Central
awesome. Okay.
Florida. So yeah, so I'm kind of like, I mean, I help when I can, and I'm more the behind the scenes. I'm good with numbers, so
Okay.
but yeah, so a very small operation here, but who knows where things can go. And he's
Oh.
still interested in fighting this coming year and stuff. So yeah, it's something.
What about grappling? Is that off the table as well? If the Submission Underground was to come to you and say, "Hey, do you want to compete in a grappling match?" Is that something that you would be interested in?
It's a possibility. I'm not. I mean, there's no head trauma, I guess.
Yeah.
So unless something crazy happens, and the UFC has let me do that before, so yeah, I would have to check because I think technically, if the UFC didn't want me to, because I'm still under contract, I think they could tell me no, but they've let me in the past.
Some people have also said with your exit, this also means that this could potentially be a sign of the division ending. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know they have made other fights. They had the Norma Dumont and Aspen Ladd fight. What do you say to those critics that your exit means the demise of the division?
Well, I really hope not. Again, that was like another thing that was like, man, maybe I should just keep fighting to keep the division, to be another person in the division. And like, but again, that reason to continue fighting for me, I was just like, that can't be my reason, like just
Yeah.
to keep the division alive. It's been a goal of mine, obviously, in the UFC and prior to that to like be a face of the division. And I mean, I guess I kind of am. I'm there. I guess if people are saying if I don't fight, then the division is done. But
Yeah.
hopefully not. I feel like there's people that are there, and that Aspen too. I feel like she should stay there and work her way to the title from that side, and hopefully others will be signed. Or I hope it's not the end for the featherweights in the 45 or in the UFC, but again, not on my shoulders, hopefully.
Yeah. No, no, for sure. And do you think that also contributed a bit to this retirement, that the division was not really promoted very well? They didn't really add a lot of fighters. I mean, if we're being honest here, if you look at Bellator's featherweight division and the UFC's, I'd say Bellator's done a lot better job of developing that division.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it led to the decision. I mean, maybe like in a roundabout way, being able to fight at such a high level, maybe my development wasn't where it should have been, or if you kind of like break it down like that, and
Mm.
being in those wars that I've been in, like maybe I wouldn't have taken so much punishment without jumping levels so quickly. And again, it's not even like one fight, or it's not like, oh, because I got beat pretty badly with Amanda, that's the reason that I'm feeling this way. I've fought a lot of really tough people in my division. Um, even as an amateur, I had some good fights, and I'm 18 fights in if I'm including amateur and pro. So, I know that's not that crazy of a number, but for me, the way that that I just, you know, I don't feel like I need to die fighting, So
Yeah.
that's
No,
kind of
no,
the way I
totally.
always looked at it. And yeah, so I don't think that I think the UFC has surprised me and others about, what they've done for the division in some ways. Obviously, it would be nice to have more people in it and more promotion, but there was a featherweight non-title fight as the main event just a few months ago. Like, what else can they do?
Yeah.
They're doing some things. I'm definitely not hating on that. Like, I think they've done a good job, and I'm sure they were surprised to see me go also. So maybe they might have wanted me to stay, but I told Mick, and he said, if you feel like that at all, they're totally supportive of, if that's how you feel for even a second, then that's the right decision. So they congratulated me on the career, and that's it.
Was Mick the only person you spoke to? Have you spoken to Dana White at all?
No, honestly, just texting with Mick.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
usually,
Okay.
yeah, I've only ever really been texted aside from like getting signed to the UFC. It's all been through texts. So I was like, I'll
Okay.
just text it.
Let's look back on that career. You had a great career. Invicta champ. You fought Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg. You've had some really memorable moments. What for you is the moment that stands out the most? Is it the Megan Anderson win? Is it getting to fight Cyborg? What for you sort of stands out in your career?
Yeah, there's so many moments that like are nice. I'm very fond of. I don't know. I think fighting Cyborg in Edmonton was like especially awesome. Like, it was the biggest. Um, like not level up. I guess yeah, the biggest like step up and like attention. I was fighting in Canada. I was fighting Chris Cyborg, who I had always talked about fighting eventually, like since I was an amateur, like one day, hopefully she doesn't retire first kind of thing. So that one is up there. Just the experience prior to the fight, the media, and then like after the fight, just being in Canada and spending time there and just everything involved with it was like, that was up there for sure.
Any regrets at all in your career?
No. I mean, there's always things that you can, take away from and like learn. But for me, all those lessons are advice for my teammates, for my friends and for my fellow fighters. Like I can always draw from my experiences to like help for future. So I'm happy with every decision that I've made. I've won an Invicta contract in Vegas. I fought for Invicta the way that I always dreamed of. Like that was such a big deal for me, just having my pro debut in Invicta. Yeah, like, skipping the Ultimate Fighter to continue fighting and win the belt. That was like a huge decision that people were not fond of at the time, but that's what I wanted. I wanted the belt. And then I still fought for the UFC. Like every decision that I've made, like it all led me here, and look at me, I'm walking away on a win, and
And on
yeah,
your terms.
I'm not
That
regretting
doesn't
it.
happen too often in fighting, is walking away on your terms, right?
Yeah, yeah, like I feel like it's all really come full circle, like from like everything that I've kind of like said throughout my career that I wanted to happen, aside from like winning the belt, like I said, I thought I was gonna win the belt. Um, Pretty much everything is pretty much like really come to fruition and kind of worked out the way that I envisioned. And yeah, there were some lessons along the way and some road bumps, but yeah, I can't say that I really have any regrets.
You mentioned fighting Cyborg. You also fought Amanda Nunes, as we mentioned here. What was the tougher fight for you now looking back on both of those performances?
Yeah, I mean, maybe with it being 5 rounds, the Nunes fight, which is funny that a lot of people, even in articles, say that I went 5 rounds with both of them, but I really only went three with Cyborg. Um, yeah, I guess with that in that regard, like having those extra 2 rounds, with either of them would have been rough. So yeah, I guess for that, I would say Nunes.
I got to mention Kayla Harrison. She's a free agent right now. A lot of people wondering what her next move is. I'm sure a lot of us would like to see her in the UFC. What do you think is going to happen with her? I don't know, because you're in Florida. I'm sure you hear some things. Where do you think Kayla's going to end up next?
I haven't heard anything. I imagine that she would fight. I feel like she'll either stay with PFL or go with Bellator for like a period of time. I feel like she'll eventually be in the UFC, but
Mhm.
I feel like that she'll just want that next, chapter. But there's a lot of money to be made, and a lot of it is in those, I mean, she's winning $1 million a year. How can you want, I mean, I'm happy for her, more
Yeah.
power to you. But it would be really cool, obviously, to have her get signed to the UFC if she was happy with her contract and if things worked out. I'd love to see her. I mean, even like her versus Aspen would be really cool, like two really strong grapplers, like or Norma, any of those girls. So, or just straight to the title. I mean, who wouldn't want to see it?
And from your vantage point, is Kayla the real deal? I know one of the questions is obviously the level of competition, but she's doing so impressively, right?
I mean, obviously she's gonna hold her own against anybody. Do I think she would beat Amanda? I have no reason to think that she would right now. Again, based on what we've seen, I don't think that she would be winning the UFC belt. But I mean, again, maybe she would be looking just as good against anybody. So it's
Yeah.
hard to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be
And
fun to watch her continue and you know um, see her path.
my last question, hell of a career. You learned a lot. Again, Invicta champ, fought in the UFC, fought the who's who. What advice would you give any younger fighters? I don't know if coaching something you're looking to do later on, but as you're sort of exiting your career, what's something you learned that you could sort of give to other people as far as advice?
Just figure out what you want and stick to it. Don't let too many outside sources like influence what your decisions are, whether it's who you fight or if you want a certain pay or just speak up for yourself and My husband always says if it's worth having, it's worth asking for, you know. So that's definitely been a philosophy, you know, like I feel like with my position, I never had a manager, so I always did my own everything, contracts and everything. So I feel like with my division, it was okay to do that because there wasn't many to choose from. But even, you know, if you're picking a manager or whoever, you know, just speak up for yourself and advocate for what you want. You know, that's you're the only person that's going to do that for yourself the way that you can, you know?
And I did want to mention one more thing. I don't mean to get too personal here, but is the plan now to start a family? I imagine with fighting out of the picture, that makes things a little bit easier, not having to worry about that as much.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, it's not set in stone or anything, but it definitely opens the door. You know, we'll see. We got our hands full with the two dogs right now.
There you go, for sure. I like how that wasn't a no, though. That's the key thing there. So that's great. Felicia, I just want to thank you so much for all the interviews over the years. It was great watching you compete, and as someone who's from Canada, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you compete on the high stage. As I always do, I'll give you the last word here, and if there's anyone you want to thank or sponsors or anything like that, there you go. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Well, I would like to thank, you know, my whole team at the Jungle, and, you know, every person that's ever trained with me or, you know, been involved with my martial arts career and journey. Like it's all, you know, it's accumulation of all of that led me to where I'm at now, and, you know, including you and every person I talk to. You know, it's all I'm grateful for all of it, and I really want to thank the fans and for everyone who takes the time to support and watch and like pays attention. It's really all because of you guys that we can, you know, compete and fight and have the life that we live, you know. So I hope that it's been as exciting for you as it was for me.